You're listening to Power BI and More with Business Solutions MVPs Scott Sewell and Joel Lindstrom. You're using Power BI, so you have data. And if you have data, you need our sponsor, KingswaySoft. KingswaySoft is a leading provider of Microsoft Dynamics integration software, including Dynamics 365, CRM, AX, NAV, GP, SL, as well as many other applications like Marketo, Dropbox, QuickBooks, and Salesforce. KingswaySoft works easily within the SSIS platform to make your integration processes as quick and easy as possible. Many of their clients have seen 3 to 10 times greater data integration performance after switching to the SSIS integration platform. And we're also sponsored by Alexa CRM. WordPress powers more than 25% of all the websites on the internet, and it's the number one choice for blogs, websites, and portals. And Dynamics 365 has become a de facto standard for sales, marketing, customer service, and industry solutions. Now they can work together thanks to the Dynamics 365 WordPress plugin built with love by the Alexa CRM team. Capture forms, engage your users and customers, all without writing any code. You can download a 30-day trial from alexacrm.com/plugin and instantly create a portal by connecting Dynamics 365 and your WordPress site. Thanks to KingswaySoft and Alexa CRM for sponsoring Power BI and More. Well, Scott, have you figured out what percentage of an eclipse you're going to have on the 21st?
Yeah, I saw that. I saw that where you checked it out. You were scanning it for your son's birthday. That's awesome.
Yeah, and, we get 100% on the 21st at like 2:39 in the afternoon. So we're right in the thick of it.
That's amazing. Yeah, I saw that Google searches for eclipse in South Carolina and Missouri and a few other states were like going through the roof. Oddly enough, Tennessee, my home state. It was like very, just barely noticeable, but the eclipse goes clear across the state. So I don't know.
Wow.
Get the information back to the volunteers that there's an eclipse coming.
Well, I'm expecting you to come up with some kind of dashboard about eclipses or something before then.
Is it eclipses or is it eclipse eye or eclipses?
I don't know. So
Eclipses?
we talked about how to embed Power BI into CRM. We've talked about how to connect CRM to Power BI. The question is now, let's say I've got some reports, SSRS reports that I'm replacing with the Power BI dashboard. What do I do about the great feature in SSRS where I can hyperlink to the CRM record? What are our options for that in Power BI?
Yeah, Joel, that's a great question. In fact, having Power BI and CRM together. I mean, it's such a great combination and so powerful. But sometimes you want to take that information that you see in that you've used the filters in the Power BI to drill down and slice the data down to a set of records that you're really interested in, and then you can see that record on the screen and click a hyperlink from that record back to CRM. The way you do that is you got to plan for it ahead of time, because even though that's a natural piece of functionality that you have in CRM, you have to plan for it in Power BI. I wrote a tip about it a while back, and I'll make sure you get a link to this. But the basics of it is inside the data set that you put into Power BI from CRM, you want to make sure you include the GUID for that record. So, for instance, if you've got a list of opportunities in CRM that you're going to be displaying in Power BI, when you bring that data over to Power BI, make sure the data set includes the opportunity ID column in that data set.
Okay.
You don't have to display that to the user. In fact, it's better if you just go ahead and hide it from the user. But you're going to use that by putting it into a calculated field for that record to create a hyperlink back to CRM. Works great. The best way to do it is to just add a new column in your data set, and it's going to be a calculated column, and you put in I'm going to call it opportunity link. Opportunity link equals, and then you need to include a string, and it's going to be like HTTPS, and it's going to have your org ID. It's basically your CRM user your CRM URL plus CRM reports, viewer, drill down ID, drill open, and then ID, and then you're gonna like put in brackets the organization that opportunity ID, and then close it out with a logical name. There's no way you can remember. You can catch that over the audio.
Now, yeah, and I think we have a tip. We have a tip about how to do that in the context of SSRS reports.
We have a tip.
So you're basically hijacking the way that SSRS reports do it. And
Exactly.
Now, how about the logical name for the entity? Do you get that through your query, or do you have to do anything to figure out what that is and hard code that in there?
In that case, you're hard coding it into, because that column is specific for a table. You do hard code that into that calculated field that you're creating.
Okay.
And when you do that, it lets CRM know, I'm opening up a record. I want to view a page. Here's the ID for the record I'm looking for, and here's the type of opportunity I'm looking for. Or excuse me, here's the type of record that I'm trying to open. And so CRM just clicks through and opens that record up, and it works like a champ.
So what strategy do you follow then for a deployment where you are doing this at the same time as you're doing your configuration? You have a dev, a sandbox, and a production, and you need to test this against your sandbox and then roll it out against your production. Do you have a sandbox copy of your dashboard that you're working with, or
Yes.
are you just repointing to your main one?
Yeah, you definitely would have a sandbox copy, and that's going to be part of your deployment strategy, is to update any URL within that. I mean, I guess you could create a variable, inside of your table that you can put in what's the URL for the table you're linking to, and then add that to the query. But you'd still need to change it somewhere in order to get the right the linkage.
Because that was always back in the day, people who wrote reports for CRM3, CRM4, you basically would hard code the URL, and then when you moved it, invariably you'd forget to update that, and then they would either get records popping up from the old environment or an invalid link. And then with SSRS around, I think it was 4.0 or 2011, they introduced more of a dynamic way to do it. And, so it sounds like we're going back to the old hard code the URL days. And so just have to have that on your deployment checklist to remember to change those links. That's always the last thing on your mind.
Yeah, it's right, because it's usually on a weekend and late at night when you're trying to do it. But once you've gotten that link in there and you've got it updated, to match the URL and the organization you have, you're going to add it to the thing. But then comes the interesting part. When you add it to a table, you want to go over to the Visualizations tab, and the little paint roller thing. You go to that formatting thing, go to the Values area, and flip on what it's going to show up as. It's going to show up as a string, a long string hyperlink. It's going to be the whole long, HTTPS, blah, blah, blah. It's going to have that in there. What you do is flip it over, and there's a button called URL icon. Change that, flip that over, and then it will show up as two little chain links, two little blue chain links. And so it's a lot neater in your organization.
Right. So then it's not actually a hyperlink on the record. It's more of just another column that has a button that you click or a link you click to open it up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So at this point, we can't. We don't have functionality to make like the name of the opportunity the hyperlink. It's still going to be a separate column, unlike CRM where the name of the record is the hyperlink to that record. This is going to be just a column beside it. So it works, but it's good, and especially since it gives you that opportunity to make the transition between the two systems much more seamless. It works nicely.
So what's your? I agree, it's a useful feature. What is the real world story here? Is this something that you would say is a best practice whenever you have a list of CRM records, put a link on there? Do you find people are actually using that? It seems like there's a couple. The use case of the hyperlink is something where you want to get in and act on it. Like I have a list of deals and I want to get in there and actually call them up or add some activities to it. Or validation. I want to see, is this really true? But I got to say, I've seen a lot of people with reports with hyperlinks where the hyperlinks never get clicked, too.
Yeah, I think it's in the CRM plus Power BI mashup, there's probably some validity. There's probably additional validity to having that there, primarily because the Power BI, where you're showing the data in Power BI, you don't have all the details around that specific record. For instance, if I have a list of opportunities in Power BI, I might see like what sales region it's in, what sales rep, what's the line of business, and who's the owner of it. But I'm not going to see like when's the most recent activities. What's the description of it? What are the all the sort of the color around that line of text? That kind of stuff is not really appropriate to push in this Power BI. So giving that link to say, okay, now we're looking at opportunities that are in the pending cancellation stage and are in in my key accounts region. I've got these two. What's the deal with them? Why are they this age? And are there any notes about it? Or are there any backup? I think it's important at this point to have that interactivity. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Yeah, I think that's right, and I think and again, similar if you're writing SSRS reports, it also can kind of serve as a guard against that person who wants to overload the list with way too many fields. Because if he or she wants to have a zillion fields on there because sometime they might want to see something, having the fallback be, well, you know what, that probably is more than we can logically fit in here, but good news, there's this great link here where you can click and see any field you want in Dynamics. That's a good story and can placate them that, hey, I won't have to go somewhere else, or I won't have to open up a browser, type something, search for something. It gives me the context. So think of it, the people I've seen that do use that, I'm thinking of the former owner of our company that we worked for, Scott, where he would use it on an SSRS report with a Monday morning sales meeting, where you got the pipeline pulled up that has the summary, and I want to focus in on this one that looks questionable and say, okay, when was the last time you really talked to them? What's your next follow-up with them? That kind of thing. It works really well for that kind of scenario.
Yeah. So, yeah, exactly right. Having that additional information and then also giving the person, like you said earlier, the ability to then say, oh, I've narrowed it down to an opportunity or a case or something that needs action. Let me go ahead and then jump over to that record and act on that record. So important feature, and again, it's just it's kind of kumbaya on the whole thing, bringing it all together. That's what we're all about, man.
So do you have any tips as far as the hyperlink field, where you put that? Is it generally best practice to put that at the beginning of the row, or is there where do you usually put that?
Honestly, in my case, I usually put the major slicers, or the sort of the categories. Those are the first things I put in my columns. Now, this is all preference, and this is I know that I could start holy wars over what's the right way to lay out a column, but my preference is to put the bigger categories at the first of the column. Like, for instance, maybe like line of business is the major category, and then maybe a region would go underneath it, and then potentially under that the rep. And then down further, if you go far enough down, you get down to the actual who's the customer this opportunity is for. Well, I'm going to stick the link right before that customer's name, because that's going to be the link that I jump directly to that customer's record. So right. That's my preference. But obviously, it's going to depend on what the specific use case of it is. The one thing to just kind of keep in mind, though, is that when you have this link on the record, at that point you've drilled down to a single record from CRM, and that record has its hyperlink on it, and so I'm going to click on that link to that record. It's not like I'm going to click on something and go to a view of 6 records in CRM. When you have it in Power BI and you're doing this link, you're clicking on the link to a very specific, the one and only opportunity that you're talking about at that point.
So you've hit rock bottom.
Exactly. I like it.
Okay, but can you do a link higher up in the chain? So let's say I'm drilling down into the category or family level, and I want to have a link to pull up a view of multiple records. Is that possible, or is there some technical reason why you can't do that? Not
yet. My understanding is that is a feature that's expected, but at the moment I can't hyperlink to a defined view in CRM. For instance, at that point you would have to be able to like dynamically define that view in CRM to go pull from. And right now I don't know of a way to say, if I've sliced it to people who are in the initial contact stage and the sales stage, but are in the key accounts business group, but live in Wisconsin. That's a pretty complex set of queries.
Yeah.
And I can't at this point pass that complex a query to CRM and have it dynamically create a view for me on the fly.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
okay.
That's kind of a limitation right now.
Besides hyperlinking to records, what about some other, since everything in CRM is URL addressable, mm-hmm. Could I have a link that, if I take the format for a new activity form and the string that passes the ID of the record to it to create a phone call regarding that person, could I have a link like that, or could I have multiple links, like a link to the contact, the company, and the opportunity record in one row?
Absolutely, you can have multiple contacts. You can have a link per entity that show up inside that row. Your idea about linking to a new activity for that entity, honestly, I've never thought about that. That's a cool idea.
I just think that would be a way, you could do a new note or a new activity, a way to make that more actionable without having to jump to the record, then do that action. If you had, I'm thinking especially a sales type dashboard where you have, users looking at that and you want them to be able to do common actions.
Joel, that's a great idea. I'm glad I thought of that.
Well, thank you. I worked hard on that idea.
I'm glad I thought of that. I'm going to take complete credit for it if it works.
All right.
No,
if it doesn't work, it's your idea.
All right. Well, cool. It was good talking to you again.
Yeah, good to catch up with you, and thanks for sharing your immense Power BI wisdom with us, Scott.
It's all a link, man. It's all hyperlinks, all the way down.
This has been the Power BI and More podcast with Business Solution MVPs Scott Sewell and Joel Lindstrom. This podcast is a production of Dynamic Podcasts, LLC. Follow Scott Sewell on Twitter @ScottSewell. Subscribe to the CRM Audio network of podcasts on Apple Podcasts, Google Play Music, SoundCloud, Stitcher, TuneIn, or any place else that fine podcasts are available. You can email us at voice@crm.audio. Thanks again to our sponsors, Kingsway Soft and Alexa CRM.